Welcome to SVL Free News and Views for Wednesday, October the 24th. I'm here at Fourth Creek Cemetery. I'll be telling you why I'm here very shortly, but we want to thank our sponsors. First of all, Mitchell College, Randy Marion, Piedmont Healthcare of Blue Harbor Bank, Fast Fills, Key to Escape, The Escape Room, Statesville Family YMCA, and Crossroads Cycling. Coming up this weekend is the second weekend of the Haunted Statesville Tours, the Haunted Statesville Downtown Tours. We go through downtown Statesville talking about some of the historical lores of past days here in Statesville. And behind me is the tomb of the unknown Confederate soldier, which is one of the stops we make here at Fourth Creek Cemetery. Come on down and hear all about that. I'll be doing one of the tours Friday night at 8 p.m. So come on out. There's several tours to pick from. So Friday and Saturday night, go to downtownstatesvillenc.org to get your tickets today. Okay, so we're going to continue our forum about the candidates forum. We're going to have to divide this up into two shows on one day because this is the District 22A race for the judge and the district court race for Alexander and Iredell County. So on this show, the first show, we're going to have Carey Parker, Carey Parker, and Daryl Davidson. So we'll have Mike Fuhrman interviews both of them on their perspective on running for this District 22A seat in Iredell County and Alexander County. So let's take a listen and hear what they have to say about running for this seat.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here today with Carey Parker, who's a candidate for District Court Judge in the 22nd District. Carey, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. We have a few questions for you, but we thought we'd start by giving you an opportunity to make an opening statement. Introduce yourself to voters.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my name is William Carey Parker. I'll be on the ballot as W. Carey Parker. I'm running for District Court Judge for District 22A. District 22A is a judicial district in North Carolina. It is comprised of both Iredell and Alexander counties. I'm really running because judges matter, and people ought to be engaged with an election for judicial candidates and really think about the importance of those candidates and participate in that election. I really strongly believe in the rule of law and the impact that the rule of law has in our society, and believe that for that system to work, we need judges who are fair and impartial, judges that know when to be reasonable or even merciful when the circumstances call for it, but also tough when justice demands that of them. I have put my name in to run for this position because I believe that I can be that judge and that I can live those ideals. A little bit about my personal reasons for running. I was born and raised in this community in Statesville and in Iredell County and the surrounding counties, including Alexander. My family has deep roots in the North Iredell area and the Statesville area. And I moved back here several years ago with my wife to start a family with the intention of giving back to this community as an attorney. And after practicing for several years, have determined that the best way that I can give back to this community that's helped me so much is by running for judge and sitting on the bench. And I just ask for your vote on November 6th and during early voting period for District Court Judge for 22A.
Thanks, Carey. Now, I know you're running as a Democrat. Could you tell us how, if at all, your party affiliation would be reflected in your judicial philosophy if you were elected?
Yeah, I would say not at all. Some folks aren't aware of this, and I think that they should be. Our legislature recently changed the law so that these district court seats are a partisan election. Not only are they partisan, but we didn't have a primary in these elections either. As a result, we've got 5 different candidates that are running, and it's a partisan election. And to be completely frank about it, I think it was a mistake on the part of the legislature to make this a partisan race. I don't think that folks should have any inclination about party politics when they come into a district court. You know, one of the important things that folks ought to know about district court is that if you get involved with the judicial system, or if you know somebody that's involved with the judicial system, it's most likely district court judges that are hearing those cases. District courts deal with custody and divorce. They deal with juvenile criminal matters, Department of Social Services. They also deal with the kind of lower level criminal matters like misdemeanors. That would be a possession of marijuana, for instance, at a lower level. So a lot of people come in contact with district court judges, and for folks to walk in there with any kind of idea that that judge might be partisan or impartial in any way is a mistake.
All right, thank you. Tell us a little bit about the unique life experiences you've had and your education that you think have qualified you for this position.
Sure. So I went to UNC Wilmington for undergrad and graduated from there in 2005. And from there I moved back home for a short period, but spent 6 years and some change in the Charlotte area working in sales and marketing. So I didn't go straight through from undergrad to law school. And worked in the business community, so dealt with contracts, dealt with just kind of your typical business matters, and I think that kind of uniquely positions me to sit on the bench in district court, because business matters do come before our district court judges. So after that, I went to law school, and I went to North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. Enjoyed my time there and moved back to Statesville from there. But while I was in law school, I had the unique opportunity to intern for now Justice Sam Ervin, who sits on the Supreme Court in North Carolina. At the time that I worked for him, he was at the Court of Appeals, and really enjoyed my time with him and learned a lot about the appeals level court from that. Of course, appeals court reviews district court decisions from time to time, so it gave me a unique opportunity to see what happens when decisions are appealed up to the Court of Appeals, and why things get appealed. So I think that will be important for me sitting on the bench. But I also participated in the law school journal for my law school. I worked for an agricultural attorney, dealing with a lot of land transactions, helping folks organize businesses and dealing with business disputes for folks who operated farms in the eastern part of the state. And that was a great experience. So I kind of started in my third year of law school with trying to figure out how the practice of law goes. And that was good for me.
Okay. Tell us your view on diversion programs like drug courts, or different programs that allow low-level offenders to maybe avoid getting a felony record, and more importantly, get treatment if they have an underlying drug offense.
Yeah, I think that those are great programs, and I understand that there are some grants out there for those types of programs, and I think that it would be really crucial for our court system to look at the availability of those types of grants and putting folks into those programs. Unfortunately, with the opioid epidemic that our country is experiencing, far too many people that get involved with the court system are involved because of an underlying addiction issue. And, that can be tough. It's tough on judges to make decisions when they know that it's an addiction problem. I would say this, though, there's been a lot of talk about having drug courts and that sort of thing in Iredell County. And, unfortunately, that is something that we might run into budget restrictions on. So I think that we need to be realistic about how we could implement that. If there are grants that are out there available to initiate something like that, it'd be fantastic. But we certainly need to be realistic about creating whole new courts for our court system here in Iredell County, because it's not something that any one judge could do unilaterally.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And finally, if you just want to sum up why you feel like you're the best candidate or the most qualified candidate in this race.
Yeah. So, I think that my experience practicing law and my life experience is the main reason that I'm best qualified. I talked a little bit about not being able to establish courts on our own as any one single judge. But I have come up with some ideas that I think could benefit our court system. A lot of people have complaints about our court system not running efficiently, or showing up in court and their case gets continued over and over and over again. And some of that could be resolved with some simple scheduling resolutions, which wouldn't cost any additional money. It's just a way to, it wouldn't be a new court, it's just reorganizing how we do things. I practice a lot of law in civil courts and civil district court. That's where I am most days. course, I've litigated multi-million-dollar cases in Superior Court. I've taken cases through the district courts of federal courts of Georgia and North Carolina. I practice in the Court of Appeals level courts. But I spend most of my day in civil district court, and I spend a lot of my time doing family law. One of the things that we see in civil district court is that there are business cases that come through there, but there aren't a huge amount of business cases. So roughly, this are not exact numbers, roughly 80% of the cases that come through civil district court are family law. Now, I can't say that we can create a family law court because of those budgetary restrictions, but what we could do is do some scheduling so that those business cases only occurred at specific times, specific dates, which would be impactful for our scheduling. If lawyers knew when their business case was going to be heard, then we could be more efficient with those at that 80% of family law cases. So ideas like that, I think, qualify me to run for judge. I pledge to be fair and impartial at all times. I pledge that I'm going to be compassionate when it's necessary. And I pledge that I'm going to be tough when justice demands that I be tough. I think that's why I'm best qualified for the job. I just ask folks to vote for me on November 6th.
Thank you. Good luck in the election.
Thanks so much.
I'm here today with Daryl Davidson, who's a candidate for District Court Judge in the 22nd Judicial District. Daryl, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Got a few questions for you today, but we'll start by giving you the opportunity to make an opening statement and introduce yourself to voters.
Well, my name is Daryl Davidson, Sr. I'm running for District Court Judge for the 22A Judicial District, which is Iredell County and Alexander County. I'm a native of Statesville. I was born here and raised here. I graduated from North Iredell High School, attended Howard University and the University of Iowa College of Law. I've been practicing for 20 years. Everything that District Court has had to offer, I've actually practiced in. And what I mean by that is District Court is where it's the first court actually that you will have to appear before if you end up with a traffic ticket, if you're charged with the crime, if you're a victim of a crime, and also not just criminal court, because there's also a civil part of District Court which deals with family law, which is child custody, child support, divorce, and when parties split up and they have to divide property, and also civil actions whereby another individual is suing another individual because of a contract. I've actually practiced in all of those areas. I started off with the firm here, a local firm, Maddox, Mallory and Associates, James Mallory and Presley Maddox. They gave me my start in my legal career, and I'm so thankful for them for that. I'll forever be grateful for them because they gave me the opportunity to actually come in and cut my teeth on practicing law. And not only did they teach me how to practice law, but they also taught me how to be fair to individuals and how to treat individuals, not just your colleagues, but your clients. The individuals that are in and around the courtroom, even down to the bailiffs and the clerks in the office, the people that are really, really important in the courtroom. So I've had quite a bit of experience. I've been doing it, like I said, for 20 years. In fact, I made partner with Maddox, Mallory and Associates. And after that, I wanted to, sort of break out on my own. They gave me their well wishes. And I've had my own firm for about 15 years now. About 15 years.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about party affiliation.
Okay.
We have Democratic candidates, I think, and some Republicans, and you're running as an independent.
That's correct.
Could you tell us, how party affiliation or the lack of would be reflected in your judicial philosophy and how it would affect what you did on the bench?
Well, here's the deal. My campaign slogan and what I've always tried to abide by is to be fair to everybody. Anybody that comes into the courtroom, whether you're a defendant, whether you're a victim, whether you're just a civil litigant looking to seek justice, all anybody ever wants is to be fair. When you come into that courtroom, there's no court ever asks an individual what party affiliation are they associated with, and nor should the people that come into the courtroom before the court have to worry about who's on the bench as far as what their party affiliation is. I've been registered independent for several years now, and part of the reason, or a large part of the reason that I'm registered independent is because along the way, I've had very good people in both parties to help me in my legal career. I've had people in both parties to help me and support me in certain situations where, I had cases that I didn't really understand, and they reached out their hand to me and helped me. In fact, my very, very first job with Presley Maddox and James Mallory, we never really even discussed party. And, for a while, I was, of course, registered as a Democrat, early on in my career. Growing up, in my family, that was, what we did. Once I got older and started doing a little research, I really wanted to vote my values. And what I mean by that is when the primaries came up, there were individuals that were running who were, Republicans. There were individuals that were running that were Democrat. And I felt like I wanted to be able to be unrestrained in supporting whoever I wanted, whether they had an R beside their name, a D beside their name, or whether they were not affiliated whatsoever. So it gave me the opportunity, to be registered as an independent for several years now, to be able to vote for who I wanted to, because I have some very good friends who are in the Republican Party. I have very good friends who are in the Democratic Party, vice versa, and some independents too. And I wanted to be able to support the individuals, not based on their parties, but based on the individuals. And so that gave me the ability to do so. As far as being an independent candidate, I'm unaffiliated, which means that I'm not tied down to either party. I believe that if you're fair for everybody, it really doesn't matter what party you belong to. And it should be, in my opinion, it should be, people over party. It should not be come down to, because you're a part of a political party, that's the way that you should, register, or that's the way you should be, and that's who you should always vote for. So in my opinion, as far as the reason why I'm registered independent, is because I'm willing to work with either party. Doesn't matter. As long as it's fair for everybody, then I'm good with that, because to me, fairness leads to equality. It balances. If you're equal and you're fair, it sort of balances out the scale of equality. So that's why I'm independent. A lot of people have asked me. I've even had some individuals come and ask me or tell me, well, you're sort of playing both sides. I'm not playing both sides. I'm an independent, and I want the ability to actually be able to support who I want. And I tell individuals that whenever I'm on the campaign trail, they'll ask me, am I affiliated? I'll tell them I'm independent. And you would be surprised at the number of individuals that are unaffiliated voters or independent voters. And I've heard, and when I tell them I'm, independent or unaffiliated, there a lot of times they really, really get interested, because they don't want to hear sometimes the political things that go along with being associated with a party. And not that it's bad. I mean, for people that, are associated with the party, that's fine. But just in my opinion, and as for me, I want to appear and I want to be based on my actions and based on my experience and based on my courtroom experience. I want people to understand that they would see fairness before any party anyway. So that's why I'm registered independent.
Okay, thank you. Now tell us a little bit about what unique experiences in your education, aside from what you've already touched on, how those things have prepared you to be a district court judge.
Well, when I first, graduated from high school, and I really, and I wanted to be a lawyer, but I thought I wanted to do corporate law, but I always wanted to come back home and practice law, or come back home and be an example for individuals here and be a role model. And so when I graduated from college, I didn't go straight into law school. I actually went to work for an insurance company, because I thought possibly I'd do corporate law, and I don't know how I was going to wheel that back into being back home. Well, I started off working with a company that gave me a scholarship in college, and I got into Manhattan. I wanted to work on or near Wall Street, so I got to work for a company there, and I worked for that company for 4 years. Well, each year that I worked for that company, I realized that I really didn't want to do anything on the corporate side. Nothing wrong with corporate in America or anything like that. It just did not fit me, and I just wanted to do a law degree instead of an MBA JD. So I worked with that company. I got personal experience in New York. I worked there for a while, and then I also worked in. They transferred me to Los Angeles, and then they transferred me to Atlanta. And then that's when I actually got into law school at the University of Iowa, because I'd been trying to get into law school. So once I got into the University of Iowa, you take your core classes, but it was during my second year, I took a class called criminal procedure that had to deal with, searches, seizures, if, law enforcement or, government has the ability to actually stop you for no reason or a reason or have a reason to stop you, man. And I became fascinated with it. And so it gave me the idea that, there's a lot of stuff that goes on that's not fair that I see, that I've seen actually growing up, that I feel like I could use the law to really go back home and do this. And so I fell in love with doing the criminal procedure and the criminal process. And I ended up, when I graduated, I came back home. In fact, I walked in one Christmas break. I walked into Presley Maddox's office and James Mallory's office, and I said, "Hey, my name is Daryl Davidson. I'm from Statesville. I'd like to come home and practice a little criminal law." And from there it went on. They gave me that opportunity, and I started working doing the criminal law. So doing the criminal law, because at that time, Mr. Maddox and Mr. Mallory, they did not have any family law actually situation or a practice in family law. And, I remember going to Presley Maddox and saying, I think I want to do some family law, because I was going through some issues. My family had went through some issues. And I said, I really need to know, I want to know the law on this. And so not only was I doing the criminal law, so I started to develop a clientele for family law. And I remember Presley Maddox telling me, "Hey, I don't know, I don't want to do anything with it, but if you want to develop it, you can." So he gave me the opportunity to develop it. So then I started cutting my teeth and doing family law cases. So I was doing criminal law in district court. I was also doing family law in district court. They had also hired me to do, or employed me to do bankruptcy law. So I was actually practicing in federal court doing bankruptcy cases. And so I was also getting the opportunity not only to see how family law developed, but how family law sometimes intertwined with bankruptcy law, because sometimes families break up over finances. Mm-hmm. So I was able to actually get that experience, talk to individuals, and not only that, with situations with things that had happened in my family, regarding custody cases, child support cases. So I delved into it. I developed that practice of doing family law as well as criminal law. And so after about 4 or 5 years, and after, they made me partner, and it was a great time, and I was doing really well. And then I noticed that there was a lot of, at that time, the Hispanic community was growing. And so when the Hispanic community started growing, actually my wife is from the Dominican Republic, and we met, and we married, and I started at that point, understanding their community. And that their community also had the same situations going on with divorce, with criminal matters, with other civil matters that were going on. I remember one of my first cases that I represented, for an individual was a guy that had a car fixed, and the people, I think the defendants in the matter wanted to keep the car, and there was a language barrier. So I felt like my client was getting the wrong end of the deal because there was a language barrier, and we were actually okay with that case. And so from that, not only just being a part of the Latino community, because my wife is Hispanic, so I got the experience of learning not only the different cultures, but within that culture and our culture and here, everybody has some of the same situations and same problems. And so all the meantime, I'm still learning more about family law, learning more about civil law, learning more about child custody and child support. Now, also during that time, I was doing quite a bit of juvenile law too, which is juvenile court, which falls under the district court guys. And with the juvenile law, you still have some of the same issues, because you have juveniles that are, when I say juvenile, under 16, they can get a criminal charge also. So I was pretty much deeply involved with that. And so when I decided to go off on my own, I did not have somebody in my firm that I had that would come in and I'd say, "Hey, well, you do the criminal part of it, I'll do the family law part of it." I was doing it all. Mm-hmm. And along the way of doing and having the experience as far as with, family law and criminal law, I tried to develop not only just a good relationship and being fair to my clients, I also tried, and I felt like it was very important to be very fair to the court, keep a good rapport, credibility with the court, with my colleagues, and even the clerk's office, and even the bailiffs. Even the people that just that's involved with the court system, period. And I learned a lot of that from, being able to work at a firm beforehand. And so all of that has actually given me the experience to be able to be, what I would feel is fair to everybody that I come into contact with in the legal system. Because one thing that individuals want, even when they come in my office, not just even before we make it to court, they just want a fair shot. They want to be treated fair, and they want the law to be meted out, fairly. Mm-hmm. And so I've had quite a bit of experience over my 20 years. I've, had my own firm for about 15 or so. And during that period of time, it's not just practicing law. You have to run a business. So in your business dealings, when you're running a business, whether it's, whether you're asking the bank to fund you, or you're asking people to support you in a certain situation, the common thread that runs through the whole, blanket of what we do is being fair. And I've tried my best to actually not only keep a good rapport with the court, my colleagues, and even law enforcement, because law enforcement, they have a very hard job. And I, even with the law enforcement, with all the issues that we've had, or not necessarily had, but it's been in the news and in the media over the last couple of years, a few years, I want to be fair to them too, because they deserve a shot to be fair, because they are actually not only a part of the community, but they're helping police the community, and they need to be treated fairly also, just like everybody else. And even defendants, they're not widgets, they are people. They don't just come in and you herd them in and you take them out or whatever. People need to understand that, people that are in the courtroom, whether they're charged with something or a victim, they're not widgets, and you need to be fair.
Okay. Turning the page a little bit.
Okay.
What is your view of diversion programs like drug court? These programs that will keep low-level drug offenders or first-time offenders from going to jail or getting a criminal record in some instances, and how would you use that as a tool as a district court judge?
Well, I think it's a great thing. The statute already allows for first-time offenders, as far as drug cases are concerned, to what's called, under statute 9096, that allows you, if it's your first time, allows you to be able to be placed on probation. You have to, of course, enter a plea, but you're placed on probation and you're given the opportunity to earn a dismissal. That's already in the law, okay? And I think it's a great thing, because one of the things that I tell, when young adults come into my office, I not only try and tell them the law, but I also, with the permission of their parents sometimes, I tell them, I'd like the opportunity to talk to you, because let me tell you what happens if you're not successful in, completing this diversion program. If you're not successful a lot of times in completing this diversion program, you'll end up with a felony on your record. And a felony sort of ties your hands for quite a period of time. It affects you in more ways than one. It inhibits, prohibits sometimes for people getting a job, does something to your voting rights. Individuals don't understand, all they hear is felony. A lot of people don't want to hear the backdrop behind it, that you were maybe in the car with somebody that had the contraband and you got charged and you had to enter a plea. Nobody really, all they know is the felony part of it. So the law already provides for that, as far as allowing you to have a dismissal or get a dismissal if you earn it through community service or probation, or even, entering a drug program or something to that effect. So I think it's a very good opportunity for individuals, because everybody's made mistakes. If you haven't made any mistakes, you haven't lived. It's like somebody said the other day in the Panthers loss. I think it was Greg Olson that said, if you haven't made a mistake, that means you haven't played in the game. And so, and that rings true, I think, in life. Now, there's been a lot of talk, with a candidate or so indicating about a drug court. I did my research on that, and not only did I do my research, I've heard this idea, of course, in the past, and some counties and some districts actually have it. But it's going to take a lot of funding. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, not only from the DA's office, but from other judges. It's going to take, you're going to have to get the probation office involved. In fact, I talked to a gentleman here just yesterday who actually was the individual that started the drug program in Catawba County. And I just wanted to get his opinion, because my opinion is that's not something that you can promise right off. And that's just my opinion. Now, if the other, the candidate comes in and indicates that he has a game plan and it's going to start at a certain time. But I asked, one of the first questions that I asked this gentleman, and he's a professor actually at Mitchell College now. He was a probation officer and he got it implemented in Catawba County, was how long did it take you to do that? And he said it took years for me to actually do it. You have to get funding for it. You have to have everybody on board. You have to actually get everything in place to get it, to get it going. And I just don't think, in the 4 years that we're given, running for district court, if we're successful, I don't think that it's going to happen in 4 years. And I don't think that it is correct to say that you can promise that and, within a certain amount of time. That's just my opinion. But I tell people, research, what we say as candidates, and see if it jives with what you find out, from credible sources, and then make your decision about whether, if this can be implemented or not. Now, do I think it's a great idea if it's implemented? Yeah, I think it's a great idea if it can be implemented, but I'd rather focus on, for me, as far as, what I'd like to do, not just becoming a judicial, a judge, but I'd like to see, I'd like to try and implement some things that I've seen from other districts to make court run more smoothly, to make court, to reduce the docket in some, districts. And there's nothing wrong, of course, like I said, as far as our district is concerned. I mean, we have some big dockets, but I'd like to see if I can implement something whereby, we don't have to have the officers sitting there all day. We don't have to have the victims sitting there all day and, continuing the cases because we can't get an officer or a victim there and things of that sort, because people also have things to do. Like, for example, an officer may have a day off, but it's his court day. And that's not very productive. So as far as the diversion program, I mean, there's one already in place, of course, with what they call the 9096 and deferred prosecution, because it gives that person the opportunity, that one chance at the apple, okay, to make it right and not have that follow them for the rest of their life. Now, like I said, with the drug program or the drug court or the other courts that people are talking about, that stuff takes funding. And I just don't see how that's going to be possible. But if elected judge, one of the things I plan on doing is sitting down not only with the, the clerk's office, but I want to talk with the, law enforcement. I want to talk, not only that, I want to talk, of course, with the current, judges, as well as even the bailiffs, because I want to know what they feel or what their perception is as far as what they feel would make the court run more smoothly. And I know in some districts at 9 o'clock, they allow attorneys to actually do cases. If the DA is ready, they'll allow attorneys to do some of the cases already to get some of that cleared off the docket and get going. In some other districts, like in Catawba County, they have a family court whereby they set certain dates that things are supposed to be done, and it pops back on the calendar if it isn't, and so it holds the attorneys actually accountable for getting it done and running it smoothly. So there, and I've talked to the clerks over there, and one clerk in particular said, I'd be glad to come over to Iredell County and talk to the clerk's office to let them know how we do it, because when I do a case over there civilly, it goes really fast, and that's no disrespect to our court system here in our district, but I think there are some ways that I think that I can move the docket so victims are not sitting there all day, and victims don't feel like, oh man, I've had to come to court 5-6 times, this person's not showing up, and whatever the case may be. But I really think I have some good ideas about what I'd like to do to make court run more smoothly.
All right. Thank you. And finally, just briefly, I'll give you an opportunity to sum up why you think you're the best candidate in the race.
Well, I'll tell you why I think I'm the best candidate. I have very good experience. I've been practicing for 20 years. And in fact, I tell people, you can ask my colleagues that I've practiced alongside with in the court system. And I'm diligent in what I do. I believe in actually being on time. I believe in also making sure that I'm not just fair, even though I may have somebody who's the opposing counsel. I want to be fair to them too. Even though my client's interest is at stake, I want to be also fair to them too. I've practiced in every area that a district court judge presides over. I've had experience in for 20 years, whether it's criminal law, whether it's juvenile law, whether it's family law, whether it's even just basic civil litigation. I've had that experience. Now, it's not just having that experience legally, it's also having personal experiences. Things such as drug court or drugs. I've had an uncle that died of an overdose. When the crack epidemic came in, I had family members that experienced that. So I have a very, very deep passion for individuals that are actually dealing with substance abuse. If it involves, of course, any abuse that deals with children, any abuse that actually deals with the elderly, any abuse that deals with people with disabilities and animals. I'm a pet lover. If the state proves their case, and it's a criminal matter that involves that type of abuse, if the state proves their case, punishment will be swift. There's just certain things that I feel like are just not what I would say excusable. And I plan on, it's not necessarily a thing of being tough, but justice will be served. So it's not just what I've experienced in court. I've had pretty much some personal experiences either with me or family members in criminal court, family court. So it's not just people that are standing before you. It's the ability to be able to look behind that and draw from your personal experiences. It's not punishing people because of your personal experience, but look beyond that with your personal experiences and try to be fair based on the facts and the evidence that are actually before you, period, point blank. The reason I want to be your next district court judge is because for so long, for 20 years, when somebody comes into my office as a client, they come in and I represent them and I just represent their interests. I'm trying to do the best I possibly can for them because they've retained me. I've taken an oath to represent my client zealously. As a district court judge, I would have the ability not only to affect the parties that are there before me, but the decisions that I make can actually affect the community. And that's my way of also giving back to the community or doing for the community. And I'll give you one example. Child custody case. As a judge, you have to decide what's in the best interest of that child. Does that child go with this parent or does that child go with that parent? Barring the fact that, that child may want to go with the one parent because that parent allows them to do this or that. But here's the scenario. Say you make the decision and that child goes and lives with the parent that, may not be the best parent, and then that parent doesn't have any guidance for that child. That child ends up now possibly not even graduating high school, possibly committing crimes. So can you see how, in fact, a decision can not only affect the people that are in before you, but also could affect the community because now that child may end up committing some crimes that affects the community. And I'm not saying that, it's in every situation, but those are the things that I say that I feel are the reasons why I want to be district court judge, and I feel like I'm the best candidate. If let me tell you, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I was the best candidate, and that's how I feel. The other candidates, I tell people there are 3 Republicans that are running. There's 1 Democrat. I'm the only independent. What I tell individuals, you need to know what's on the menu before you order. And what I mean by that is research the candidates. And if you feel like that person is your candidate to vote for, then vote for that person. I'd love for you to vote for me. But it should not matter whether that person that you vote for has an R or D or unaffiliated. It should be the person that you feel is best qualified for the job. And I think I'm that person.
All right. Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you so very much.
Good luck in the election.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you for having me. You guys have a nice day.
So there you have it, the interview, Mike Fuhrman's interview with both Carey Parker and Daryl Davidson running for the District 22A District Court judgeship, so for Alexander counties and Iredell counties. We're also going to have a second show now. We'll be coming up next with Brantley Oswalt, Carol Hicks, and Rob Young. So that'll be on the next show. But if you haven't done it yet, go to svlfreenews.com, sign up for your email edition, which comes out every morning at 5 a.m. to get the latest on what's going on in Statesville and Iredell County. So stay tuned. We'll have one more show today, and then we're also on Friday. I'm going to run a show about the candidates for the Iredell County Commissioner's race. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next show here, and then also on the show on Friday. So have a great week, and stay tuned.